So our topic for today called methods. Or in other languages, in different languages, we call this. We have different names for this concept: methods, or functions, or procedures. I'm sure many of you work with that. Every one of you already have this public main method, which is already this kind of method, function, or procedure. We could call it any name. And so we will talk about that. Okay, until this, you already know data types and variables. Next, you know that your code executed line by line. You know that you have if statements or also switch statement. When you, depending on condition, you could move your execution of your code this way or another way. Moreover, you know about loops, when you could repeat a lot of code through loop. And this is the kind of finishing concept of what we call structured programming. All you know until today, if we combine all of that, we could say that we now understand structural programming. When I learned programming in my school many time ago, when we come to specific building with specific computers and our language was basic, I mean it name of the language, not that Visual Basic from Microsoft, but another very ancient basic language. And we had such a statement in that language, which called go to. So I could write different lines of code and then put go to and say that, okay, I want to go to line 20 now. And could you imagine this kind of code when you could have go to anywhere? And that's why it come here, there, and so on. At the same moment of programming, of development of this area, academics decided, also especially Dijkstra, which is very famous scientist in this area, he proposed this idea of structural programming and said that, okay guys, now I say that we could program without this go-to statement and still implement any algorithm we need. We could implement any, complicated, any complex algorithm just using if-else, just using loops, and just using methods or functions. And all of that called structural programming. And using this arsenal of tools, this toolkit, you could really implement any algorithm. So, what we know about others, but what methods and functions, what it's about. It is such an approach when you could create, or when you could transfer, or how to say that, when you could take few lines of code and call, okay, I will call this line of code, these several lines of code with this name. So it is kind of the same as to have these lines of code, but call it with one name. This is it. So for example, when you open the book, you have chapters, right? Inside the chapters you have different maybe topics, and inside the topics you have text, correct? So let's say that methods, it is kind of chapters of our code. We could have different chapters, we could create, okay, this is this block of code, then this block of code, and this block of code. But under the hood, you have different kind of texts here, or different chapters, or different like topics inside that specific names. You see that we just broke our program into different parts, and we combine hard parts of our code, because some of you already had more than 100 lines in your code when you come and show your assignments, and some of you have more than 100 lines. So could you imagine that 100 lines of code? It is quite hard to manage this complexity. It is quite hard to understand and to develop this program, because it is, oh my, 100 lines, 200 lines, 300 lines, thousands of lines. Could you imagine how could we change anything in our program if we just have these tons of lines of code? But now we have methods, and we could combine some parts of our code. We could divide this complex task into smaller ones. So, when we call our program Blackbox in the very beginning of our learning, we could call this method as a black box, that we put some information here and get some results. And we don't know how it implemented inside the black box, but we still can use this black box. So, when you have a bit another example, or a bit another conversation with you on this topic. When you have hard task, complex task to implement, and you could just sit and procrastinate because of that really hard task, what should you do? You should break up your task into smaller ones. Is it correct? And when you have just smaller tasks, it is easier to implement, to work with this smaller task. We do it everywhere in our life. So no doubt about that. We just divide our hard work into smaller parts. So methods, it is exactly what serve to this, for this aim. So let me now show you just example. For example, we want to, I don't know, to have user input. So again, let me show you. And I could even make it bigger. Yeah. So first of all, some additional tip. I could create a scanner, because we need that scanner everywhere for user input. So scanner and new scanner. So take a look that I create this scanner outside my main function, which is also method. It is what we already done with this main function. But I will create this scanner, and I could use this scanner in my, I will do it static. We will work with this static stuff a bit later when we talk about object-oriented programming, but still you should know something, because it is Java and everything is object-oriented here. But now I just want to talk about methods, just about methods. Okay, yeah, I just created this variable in, and I say, okay, it is static variable. That means that I could create different methods and access that variable in different methods. So, first of all, I want to have some user input. So, for example, age. What is your age? So, I should give my user some comment, some caption. What is your age? And then have this user input. Okay, integer, int age, and next int. All right. And then I could, yeah, and maybe next line, as we talked about that. So I should have these 3 lines of code to create kind of good like user input with caption from my program, and to get this variable and to use this variable somehow, and to have this additional service call and so on. So for example, I would like to know not only age, but for example something else. So could you help me? What other integer value could we ask our user? Year of birth, not the same like age, but okay, let it be. Or current year. Okay. Let it be so. Maybe our user lives in another life. What year in your life is now? And again, we have duplicated lines here. Now it is, let it be year from the user, and so. And after that, of course, we could work with that, and we could have some work with age and work with year and compare something or handle it somehow. But now let me emphasize that this two blocks of code really similar. Do you agree with me? They're really similar. So methods also help us not only break our hard task into smaller tasks, like reduce complexity, but also help us not to not duplicate ourselves. So I could create such a method. So now we start to create method. How I do that? I create public, call it is public method. So again, it is object-oriented stuff. It is static method. At this moment, every of our methods will be static. And now something important begins. So please pay attention and maybe write it somewhere. So first, here we should put output type or return type of the method. What means return type? So I want to have this integer value from the user, so I will put int here. So my return type of my method, and for this method, integer. It could be string, it could be double, anything we want. And now after that, it is name of the method. Get user integer value. This is the name of the method, and pay attention to this name. First of all, I start from a small, how we call it, letter, not from capital. It is just convention. It is good to know for you. And every other word I started from capital, so it is easy for you to read, because I can't get spaces here because it is incorrect syntax. But I start just every new word with this capital. Okay, get user integer value. This we call camel case, because it is like a camel. Okay, this is the name of the method. Name of the method. So return value and name of the method. Please mention it for yourself. Next, we have these brackets, and inside these brackets we have parameters. Next section called parameters, or input values, or arguments. Like here in main we have here in main we have arguments, which is string, array of strings. So here I could create any other argument. So what means argument? It is what I put here. I could put some arguments, 1 argument or 0 arguments or 3 arguments. I decided. And this is my black box. I do something with that arguments or parameters. And then I have this return value. So in my method, return value is int. And I should put some arguments. So if I propose to put arguments here to this black box like caption for user. So for example, let me call it string caption. This will be my only one parameter to this method. Okay, what I do next? I can take this code, copy into this method, and make some changes. So my idea is to have caption here, output this caption, and ask user do something. What to do? I will put it later into this method. So I put this caption into println. Then I create new variable. It is not year. It is some abstract variable. Let it be x. I get this number and I return this number. So please pay attention to this code. Inside my method, I println inner parameter caption. I get user input. Service call for next line, and I return x value. So I return this value, what I get from user. I return it here, and this value was type integer. This is the idea of the methods, and of course I should emphasize that here's that I use in variable this variable. This variable is not present in this method, so it is kind of global variable. At this level I could call it in such a way, because I have this variable in my class main, again object-oriented programming. I have this variable here, and every other method, every method could use this variable inside the method. So I use this variable inside, for example, this method. And please understand that you could not use variables from one method in other methods. So for example, it is impossible to use age from method main inside the method user get user value, because it is just black box. You could have many black boxes, and that black boxes have its own private variables, and no one could see, because black box, it is closed for outer world. These functions, this method communicate with outer world just with these tools, like inner parameters and output or return values. So now, what should I do with my code in main? Now I could delete all this stuff. I don't need it anymore. Or maybe I need a little bit. I mean, what is your age? So what should I do now? I have this method getUser integer value. I copy this method. I put it here. I put parameter inside this black box, and this parameter is caption for the user. So I put this caption here. You see, IntelliJ helps me to understand, okay, caption. Now I delete my caption. I delete this service call. And now I don't have this 3 lines of code, but I have just one. And it looks quite beautiful, I suppose, and really understandable from the human language perspective. Do the same for the next input. What year in your life is now? I don't know is it proper English here, but let it be. And again, I delete previous line. Of course, it is not age, but year. And I delete that. Oops. So you could see my program become a little bit smaller. I have additional black box in my program, and this additional black box helps me not to duplicate myself, and now I have really understandable English kind of human language code. So in variable age, I won't get user integer value, and I ask user to input that value with these words, and the same for year. So I could run it now. What is your age? 15, for example. What year in your life now? I don't know. So this one, and nothing happened because it is all we done at this moment. But you see how could we use methods? Do you see value of the methods? Do you understand this idea? Do you have questions? Okay, let me show you that you could have, for example, I could create method which wrap system out println and call it println public, just another method, public static void now, which is interesting. Void means that my method do not return anything. Just my method will not have this return statement. Public static void println. Okay, let it be integer. I get value in this method, and I just output this value. And maybe I would like to have caption also. And let me have this caption here. And then let me put caption and plus some spaces. Yep, I think that would be okay. So I have this new black box println. In this println I have two parameters, one integer, one string. What return value of this method? Println. Which type of return? Nothing. Void. Emptiness. No return value. So that's why I have no any return here. Okay, this is the difference between these two methods. I just show you that there are different kind of methods you could create. And now, let me show you how it works. So I have this println and your age. Now this value, but first value age, and second value, second parameter is your age string, and same with the year and okay, year. So this is my program. My program become concise. My program become very kind of English language, human understandable. And let me run it. What is your age? 17. What is your year in your life? Your age and year. So we have this formatted output, which we have in this specific println method. So this is how we this is how we decompose. We have this one more word in programming, decomposition. We decompose hard task, we break up that task into smaller parts. It is decomposition. So in such a way, we could decompose many of our programs into smaller sub-programs. We could consider methods, functions, procedures like sub-programs. And this is the idea of structural programming, that we could use this if, else, loops, and procedures and implement any algorithm we need. So, and I could say that methods is really cool stuff. And let me introduce a few more concepts, and I will give you a task. So, this first line, which give us all the information about how this method communicate with outer world, we call it signature. Підпис, signature. Could you please write it somewhere? Signature of the method. Signature of the method. Сигнатура, навіть there is neologism українською. Сигнатура, ми не кажемо підпис. Signature of the method. So signature composed of all this meta information, all this interface information, how we come to that black box, how we use that black box. It is called signature. So this is it, and it is of course body of the method. Inside, like body of the loop and body of the method, we also should know these terms, these concepts each programmer knows. This is return value, and here we have no any return value. Yeah, this is it. And one more concept, let me show you one more trick, one more kind of magic stuff. So here I output in println just integer value. For example, if I want to output, I don't know, string value, for example, I would like to print name of my user, name. Okay, I have no method for that at this moment, so it will be direct call to next line of my scanner. And of course, that's why I should put south, enter your name. Okay. And if I want print this name and put it, your name is, okay. I have a problem. What is my problem? Require a type integer, but provide a type string. That means that you could not broke the syntax of the signature. You should just be very strict to this signature. All your types, count of parameters should be the same. And here it is impossible because I put string here, but computer waiting for integer value. That's why I could provide the same method, but with a bit different signature. And I put, I substitute this integer with string. And now everything is okay. No errors. I could use it. So now you see this magic. You have two methods with the same name. In general, in programming, if you call another variable with the same name, what you get some error. But here, there is no error, and we call it overloaded. Overloaded method. That means that the same kind of name of the method used with another signature, with another parameters. And that's why it is possible to create the same methods with the same name. I mean, it could have, of course, another body. Of course, everything could be different in this another black box, but a little bit different parameters, and you still could use it without any problems. So I could run it, and I will not have any problems. So it looks like I use the same println like here, do you see? But in line 13, it is absolutely another method, just the same name, but different parameter. Here I have string, here I have integer. Okay, this is general information about methods. Do you understand that? Do you have any questions? Okay. What I want you to do now, I have tasks for you.
Can I have a question?
Yes, please.
Why do we use what is static?
What is static? Okay, good question. What is static? So again, it is related to object-oriented programming, and unfortunately, you already use this public class main and public static void, all this stuff, and at this moment you don't know what that means. But I really can't explain in few words, because I should explain what is classes, what is objects, and so on. So just at this moment, you should use static to be able to call static method from static context, let's say. We will call our method from the static main. Main is static. And if I take away this static, I will get just error, like I call non-static method cannot be referenced from static context. So as we stay in static context, we do not create object. I'm sorry guys, it is another topic. So that's why we still use static here.
What if we delete static from the first part?
Well done, good idea. So creative people in this room. Yeah, we could do this. It is quite good idea, and we definitely could do that. But then we could not run it because it is another problem starts at that moment. So at this moment, I would recommend you to use statics. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
How to make a variable really public? Like we have a public at the start of a function, but it's not public.
Yeah. Do you want it to be public?
Yes.
Okay. Let's make it public.
For what?
What?
Yeah. For what? This is the question. So again, it is another subject. I don't know. I really feel this temptation to explain you objects and classes now. And in few words, if you have non-public variable, like private variable, then from the outer world, you could not access that variable. If your variable or method become public, then outer world could call that. But it is all about objects, not about methods. So I don't want to create mess in your heads. So now it is like it is. Yeah.
Why scanner becomes static? So if I
Yeah.
remove the static word in front of scanner, it won't.
I think we can't use our string names in our public static void because it's not static.
Yeah, just a quick answer the same like on previous question, that we work in static context at this moment. And if I remove this static, then it is non-static context, it is dynamic context. And that's why I will not be able to use this here, because it becomes inaccessible at this static context, because it is non-static.
It is variable.
Huh?
But it is variable, not like masses. Why not?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Maria, you are absolutely right. So I don't know how to explain, my dear students, all this object-oriented, complicated stuff of Java when we just learn in structural programming. It is just about objects. Maybe I should really move that explanation about object classes and so on. But we are now going through this evolution of programming, and programming from the 17th and 16th was kind of structural programming. And object-oriented programming, that was next step, next stage for this structural programming. So now we are been developing step by step how all this domain, all this area of programming was developed. At that moment, Dijkstra didn't know anything about this public class and object-oriented and also static. So sorry for these words at this moment. Unfortunately, we should use this in advance. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? No questions, wonderful, okay. So, my task to you, I know that it is not much time here, and try to, yeah, I suppose you see it on our screens. So, first task, it is take your previous project and your tasks. Maybe just take the biggest task from previous project and try to decompose that, to break that into methods. So take your project 3 last task. It was the most biggest code at this moment, and try to create functions and to break that into smaller parts.
I got a question.
Yeah, just a moment. And next, it is adder. Like you have a program when you put values, and your program creates summarize all the values and output that. So it is also, we could create with methods, and we use string there. So okay, it is some explanation, additional information here. Yeah, if you can make task to create task 2, okay. If not, at least task number 1. Yeah, the question.
Is it really necessary for methods to put our scanner upper to public static void main?
It is not required. You could put that inside your method. Yeah, it is possible. But in that case, you will need to recreate your scanner every time when you call this method. Okay, let's go. Let's try to do that. And we are here to help you. Every one of us, we will help you and check if you're done. Please remind us and tell that, okay, I'm done, please check, and we will make some notions for ourselves regarding that.